Hey couples, we're in week 2 of our series called After the Affair, where we're helping you as a married couple to work through all of the complicated emotions when you found out that somebody in that marital relationship has had an affair. You've already learned that there really is hope after the affair as long as both of you are willing to work at it. And in this lesson, we're going to specifically address the offender, the person who stepped out on the marriage. We're going to give you 5 steps that you can begin to take today to start healing your marriage. Now, in the last lesson, we already gave away the 5th step, and that is to work hard to earn trust. But today we want to fill you in on those other 4 steps. And here's the first one. You have to own up.
This can be the hardest step in a lot of ways, but the first thing you need to do if you want to build back towards a healthy marriage with your spouse and to earn their trust is to own up, to be totally honest about what's happened, to say, I've been in a relationship with somebody else, it started here, and just be honest about what's happened. If you're not able to be honest and to step into that, then that's only going to breed more question in your spouse's mind of, okay, did I get 1/4 of the story? Did I get all of the story? Your first step is just to totally and completely own up and to speak about it in the language of, I made this choice. This isn't about you. You didn't make me do this. I made a choice and I stepped out on the relationship.
Step number 2 then is to seek counsel. Find someone who is for your marriage, someone with wisdom, and ask their advice.
This is an important thing to do as well because you're processing a lot of emotions just like your spouse is. And your emotions are you're still trying to wrestle with, how did I get here? Feelings that you might still have for the other party that you had the affair with, seeing the brokenheartedness of your spouse, if you have kids, knowing, just kind of coming to terms with the ramifications of the choices that have been made. So seeking some other counsel, someone outside of the marriage is going to be good for you to process through some of those emotions, to think through things, even the conversations that you have with your spouse, to talk to someone about ordering your thoughts, getting your emotions in check, thinking about how do I want to approach this? What's my plan of attack, so to speak, of coming back to my spouse. But this is a heavy duty deal, and it's going to be different for you in a lot of ways emotionally than it is for your spouse. But to have someone to kind of have as an outside person to process with is just a really helpful tool, because when you start talking to your spouse about it, they have their own emotions and stuff they're working through. They're not going to be able to help you because they're dealing with the stuff that's happened to them internally as they've learned about the affair.
Now, once you and your spouse have been able to seek some good, solid counsel, then at some point it is time for you to come together and have a talk. Be honest with one another so that you can begin to start moving forward.
Now, you've probably had several talks, but what we mean is that when you start having conversations toward dealing with the aftermath of of finding out, right? The realization of what happened, you're going to have many, many talks moving forward. But what you want to make sure as the offender is that you go into that conversation thoughtfully. You go into that conversation recognizing what I want to make sure I communicate to my spouse. Again, like I said earlier, that you don't use accusatory language or victim language like, because our marriage was broken, because you never paid attention to me, or you were never affectionate with me, I made this decision. You really want to make sure that when you go into the conversation with your spouse, that you're ready to own up to the things that you've done, that you speak things of life, that you want to save the marriage, that you want to earn trust, that you have a plan for the conversation. So it's not just exploding at each other and saying more hurtful things and then creating more damage than good.
And this next step is important for the offender to keep in mind as you're having your conversation. You need to remember to be humble.
Yeah, it's human nature that we want to justify ourselves. We want to self-protect. And so when you go and have some conversations with your spouse might be saying some pretty hurtful things to you right now. They're hurt. They're devastated. They feel just a sense of betrayal. So it could be easy for you to be tempted to start thinking in your mind, well, I didn't make this decision alone, right? As I said a few minutes ago, you could start to turn this to be, you made me do X, Y, or Z, or you're the victim here. And so humility is going to be so important for you as the offender to say, I am going to put myself in a place of recognizing that I've hurt you, I've wounded you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter right now if some of the decisions that were made or there were things that were broken in our marriage that we weren't happy in or whatever. That humility would say, my job is to come to my spouse, to be sorry, to want to work to build trust, to be humble, right? Not making excuses, not being the victim, just being humble to learn and to be willing to do whatever it takes, whatever your spouse needs in order to build the marriage back.
Because we already learned what that final step needs to be for the offender. And it's not just a one-time step. This is going to take many, many weeks and months and maybe even years, is to work hard to earn that trust back.
Yeah, the essence of trust is that it's earned. It's not just freely given. And so for you now, especially because there's been a breach of trust, your mindset, again, all these steps building on each other are about you saying, I need to work hard every day. And every word that I say and every action that I take and any question that my spouse has for me, that I'm forthright, that I'm honest, that I leave no stone unturned, that you just recognize that every day is an opportunity to earn trust, to show trustworthiness, to show your spouse that you're in this, that you hear them, that you want to meet their expectations on these things because you want to save the marriage, you want it to be healthy, and you recognize that you have trust to earn.
So those are the 5 steps for the offender to take. And remember, in the next lesson, we're going to get to the spouse who has been offended, the one who's been a victim of this infidelity. So we'll get to that in the next lesson. But for now, use those questions down below on the series page at flextalk.org to have this conversation with your spouse or the mentoring couple.